Have you ever woken up from a nightmare so vivid, so terrifying, that you couldn't shake the feeling it was more than just a dream? What if I told you that Edgar Cayce, America's most documented psychic, discovered that your worst nightmares might actually be memories from your past lives trying to break through? In over 14,000 documented readings, archived at the Association for Research and Enlightenment in Virginia Beach, Cayce revealed a shocking truth that could transform your understanding of nightmares forever. Tonight, I'm going to share with you 3 documented cases from Cayce's files that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about dreams. First, the woman whose recurring nightmare of drowning led to the discovery of a past life tragedy that explained her lifelong fear of water. Second, the businessman whose terrifying dreams of being burned alive revealed a past incarnation that was holding back his current success. And third, Cayce's revolutionary method for interpreting nightmare symbols that has helped thousands of people unlock their soul's deepest secrets. But here's what's going to blow your mind. In reading 294-136, given in 1932, Cayce revealed something that even his closest associates found hard to believe. He explained that nightmares aren't random creations of your subconscious mind. Instead, they are your soul's desperate attempt to process unresolved trauma from previous lifetimes. These experiences are so intense, so emotionally charged, that they bleed through the veil between incarnations, manifesting as terrifying dreams that feel more real than your waking life. Edgar Cayce didn't just theorize about this phenomenon. For over 4 decades, from 1901 to 1945, he entered deep trance states and accessed what he called the Akashic Records, a cosmic library containing the soul history of every person who has ever lived. Through this connection, he could trace the origins of recurring nightmares back to their source in past incarnations, providing healing and understanding that transformed lives forever. Consider this documented case from 1938. A young woman from Norfolk, Virginia, contacted Cayce about nightmares that had plagued her since childhood. Every few weeks, she would experience the same terrifying dream. She would find herself trapped in a burning building, smoke filling her lungs, flames surrounding her on all sides. The heat was so intense, she could feel her skin burning. She would wake up screaming, drenched in sweat, the smell of smoke still lingering in her nostrils. These weren't ordinary dreams. They were so vivid, so detailed, that she began to fear sleep itself. She could describe every crack in the wooden walls, every piece of furniture in the room, even the specific sound the flames made as they consumed everything around her. During reading 1523d7, Cayce revealed the shocking truth behind these nightmares. He explained that in a previous incarnation during medieval times, this woman had been accused of witchcraft and burned at the stake. The trauma of that death was so severe that it had imprinted itself on her soul's memory, bleeding through into her current lifetime as recurring nightmares. But here's what makes this case even more remarkable. Cayce provided specific historical details about the time period, the location, and even the circumstances that led to her execution. Details that the woman had no way of knowing consciously. When she researched the historical records based on Cayce's information, she found documentation that perfectly matched his descriptions. The village he mentioned, the time period, even the specific accusations that had been made against accused witches in that region. This wasn't imagination or coincidence. This was documented proof that her nightmares were actual memories from a past life. But the story doesn't end there. Cayce provided her with specific techniques for healing this past life trauma. Through meditation, prayer, and what he called soul forgiveness work, she was able to release the emotional charge attached to these memories. Within 6 months, the nightmares stopped completely. She never experienced them again for the rest of her life. This case illustrates the fundamental principle behind Cayce's approach to nightmare interpretation. He taught that nightmares serve a specific purpose in our spiritual evolution. They are our soul's way of bringing unresolved issues to our conscious attention so they can be healed and released. When we ignore these messages or dismiss them as mere dreams, the soul continues to send them with increasing intensity until we finally pay attention. Here's another documented case that demonstrates this principle perfectly. In 1941, a successful businessman from Richmond came to Cayce desperate for help. Despite his financial success, he found himself inexplicably terrified of taking any risks in his business. Every time an opportunity for expansion presented itself, he would be paralyzed by fear. But it wasn't ordinary business anxiety. It was a deep, primal terror that made no logical sense. The fear became so intense that he began experiencing nightmares where he would find himself in what appeared to be ancient Rome. He would be standing in a Colosseum, surrounded by roaring crowds, facing wild animals with nothing but primitive weapons to defend himself. The terror he felt in these dreams was so overwhelming that he would wake up with his heart pounding, unable to return to sleep for hours. During reading 2392, Cayce revealed that in a past incarnation, this man had been a Roman gladiator who died a brutal death in the arena. The trauma of that experience had created what Cayce called a soul fear that was manifesting in his current lifetime as an inability to take risks or face challenges. His subconscious mind associated any form of confrontation or risk with the life and death struggles he had faced as a gladiator. But here's where Cayce's method becomes truly revolutionary. He didn't just identify the past life source of the problem. He provided a specific technique for transforming the nightmare into a healing experience. Cayce taught this businessman how to consciously enter his dreams and change the outcome of the gladiator scenario. Instead of dying in the arena, he would visualize himself emerging victorious, overcoming his fears, and walking away triumphant. This technique, which Cayce called dream transformation, allowed the man to rewrite his soul's memory of the traumatic event. Within 3 months of practicing this method, not only did the nightmares stop, but his business fears completely disappeared. He went on to expand his company internationally, taking risks and facing challenges with confidence he had never experienced before. What makes Cayce's approach so different from modern psychology is his understanding that nightmares often contain literal memories from past incarnations. While conventional dream interpretation focuses on symbolism and psychological projection, Cayce taught that many nightmare elements are actual historical details from previous lifetimes. The key is learning to distinguish between symbolic dreams and past life memories. In reading 5754-2, Cayce provided specific criteria for identifying past life nightmares. First, they tend to be unusually vivid and detailed, with sensory experiences that feel completely real. Second, they often involve historical periods or settings that the dreamer has no conscious knowledge of. Third, they typically center around traumatic death experiences or intense emotional situations. Fourth, they recur with remarkable consistency, often featuring the same characters, locations, and sequence of events. Most importantly, past life nightmares are accompanied by what Cayce called soul recognition. The dreamer experiences a deep, inexplicable knowing that what they're seeing is not imagination, but actual memory. It's a feeling that goes beyond ordinary dream recall, touching something fundamental in their spiritual awareness. But wait, there's something even more extraordinary about Cayce's nightmare interpretation method. He discovered that these past life memories don't surface randomly. They appear precisely when the soul is ready to heal and release the trauma they represent. This means that if you're experiencing recurring nightmares, your soul is actively working to free itself from ancient wounds that are limiting your current spiritual growth. The timing of these nightmare revelations is orchestrated by what Cayce called the soul's wisdom. Your higher self knows exactly when you have developed enough spiritual strength and understanding to process these difficult memories without being overwhelmed by them. This is why some people experience past life nightmares during periods of major life transitions, spiritual awakening, or when they're ready to break through limiting patterns that have held them back for lifetimes. This brings us to Cayce's revolutionary three-step method for working with past life nightmares that has transformed thousands of lives. The first step is what he called conscious recognition. When you wake from a nightmare that feels unusually real or historically specific, instead of dismissing it as just a bad dream, acknowledge the possibility that you've accessed a past life memory. Cayce taught that this simple act of recognition begins the healing process immediately. The second step involves what Cayce termed soul dialogue. Before going to sleep the following night, ask your higher self to provide additional clarity about the nightmare experience. Request to understand the spiritual lesson or karmic pattern that needs to be resolved. Often, subsequent dreams will provide missing pieces of the story or reveal the deeper meaning behind the traumatic experience. The third and most powerful step is conscious healing work. This involves entering a meditative state and revisiting the nightmare scenario with the intention of bringing healing energy to that past incarnation. Cayce taught specific visualization techniques where you send love and forgiveness to both yourself and others involved in the traumatic situation. This process literally rewrites the energetic imprint of the experience, freeing your soul from patterns that may have been affecting you for centuries. Here's a documented case that perfectly illustrates this three-step process in action. In 1943, a nurse from Baltimore came to Cayce about recurring nightmares where she found herself as a Civil War soldier, dying alone on a battlefield. The dreams were so intense that she could smell gunpowder, feel the pain of her wounds, and experience the overwhelming loneliness of her final moments. These nightmares had been occurring for over 2 years, and she was beginning to fear that she was losing her sanity. During reading 1947-3, Cayce confirmed that she was indeed accessing memories from a past incarnation as a Union soldier who had died at Gettysburg. But he revealed something even more significant. In that lifetime, she had harbored deep resentment toward the Confederate soldiers, dying with hatred in her heart. This unresolved anger was creating a karmic burden that was affecting her current incarnation, manifesting as difficulty forming close relationships and a tendency toward bitterness. Following Cayce's three-step method, she began working consciously with these nightmare memories. During her meditative healing sessions, she would return to that battlefield scene and consciously choose forgiveness instead of hatred. She would visualize herself dying with love and compassion in her heart, sending forgiveness to those who had taken her life. Within weeks, the nightmares transformed from scenes of terror and anger into peaceful visions of spiritual release and understanding. But here's what happened next that will absolutely astound you. Not only did the nightmares stop, but her entire personality began to shift. The chronic bitterness that had characterized her relationships disappeared. She found herself naturally more loving, more forgiving, more open to forming deep connections with others. It was as if healing that ancient wound had unlocked her soul's capacity for joy and compassion in ways she had never experienced before. This case demonstrates one of Cayce's most profound teachings about nightmare work. When we heal past life trauma through conscious spiritual practice, we don't just resolve the specific incident. We often unlock dormant spiritual gifts and capacities that have been blocked by these ancient wounds. The energy that was tied up in maintaining the traumatic imprint becomes available for positive expression in our current lifetime. Cayce also revealed something crucial about the symbolic language of past life nightmares. While the core events may be literal memories, the details often contain symbolic messages about current life challenges. For example, dreams of being trapped in a burning building might represent feeling trapped in a current situation. Dreams of drowning could symbolize being overwhelmed by emotions or circumstances. Dreams of being chased might indicate running from responsibilities or avoiding confrontation with important issues. The key to interpreting these symbols lies in what Cayce called soul resonance. When you encounter a nightmare symbol that carries particular emotional intensity, ask yourself what current life situation evokes the same feeling. Often, you'll discover that your soul is using past life imagery to communicate about present circumstances that need your attention. In reading 5E754-3, Cayce provided specific guidance for distinguishing between symbolic and literal elements in past life nightmares. He taught that literal memories tend to have consistent details that don't change from dream to dream, while symbolic elements often shift and transform. Historical details that can be verified through research are more likely to be literal memories, while anachronistic elements or impossible situations usually carry symbolic meaning. But perhaps the most remarkable aspect of Cayce's nightmare interpretation method is its potential for spiritual acceleration. He taught that working consciously with past life nightmares can compress lifetimes of spiritual growth into months or years of focused practice. By healing ancient traumas and releasing karmic burdens, we free ourselves to express our soul's highest potential in this incarnation. This process requires courage, commitment, and often the guidance of someone experienced in this type of spiritual work. But for those willing to face their deepest fears and heal their oldest wounds, the rewards are extraordinary. Chronic phobias disappear, relationship patterns transform, creative abilities emerge, and a profound sense of spiritual freedom develops. As we conclude this exploration of Edgar Cayce's revolutionary approach to nightmare interpretation, remember that your dreams are never random. They are carefully orchestrated communications from your soul, designed to guide your spiritual evolution and heal ancient wounds that limit your current potential. The next time you experience a nightmare that feels more real than reality itself, don't dismiss it as just a bad dream. Instead, consider the possibility that your soul is offering you a gift, an opportunity to heal something that has been affecting you far longer than this single lifetime. Your nightmares may be frightening, but they're also your soul's way of saying that you're finally strong enough to face what needs to be healed. Trust the process, apply Cayce's methods, and discover the profound transformation that awaits when you turn your deepest fears into your greatest spiritual breakthroughs.